After 2.5 years, we got the business up to over $10 million and the wheels rolling and everything's great. All of a sudden, there's no money. Where's the money? Sales are there. And, again, we had to bring in someone from the outside. And they were saying, you're not realizing, you have a lot more inventory than you think you have. Your margins aren't where you think they are. Your costs are higher, and it seems like such a simple thing. Like, how don't you know that? Like it's ABCs, but something, when you're in the middle of it and everything's moving, you don't think about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to EBMR Podcast, where business ownership meets intelligent financing and strategic thinking. Today, we have a great guest. He's actually an expert in businesses, and he has a question for you. Are you thinking big? Do you have big thinking? Do you have strategic thinking? Are you seeing the big picture? So he's going to tell us all about that and his experience actually with businesses, his trajectory, and then how we can apply everything he's learned to your everyday decisions as a strategic thinking leader in your home, in your life, in your business. So Kemmy Safdie from the Safdie Group. Kemmy,
Yep.
How are you this morning?
Great. Feeling good. New year. Let's see how it goes. Should have a healthy year before anything.
Well, we are starting this podcast right now on the 1st of January. I wanted to mention that because very interesting date, to be able to get together. But that's how leadership starts. You start the first day, you make a decision, you go through and you meet. Well, Kemi, I am very excited to hear your trajectory and your experience. So I will let you start with, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do? And then we're going to get into a little bit more details of how you're helping entrepreneurs, business owners, etc.
Right. Thank you. So I've been in the business world for the last 30 years, primarily in imports, bringing in merchandise from overseas. And when I first started, I was in the retail business. I didn't have too much experience. And as I was getting in, a friend of mine that was very successful had said to me, I'm going to give you your first lesson in business. Sell. Sales covers everything. Just grow your volume and everything will be great. Makes sense. So that's what we did. I had a partner and buying, selling, business is really starting off. But after 2.5 years, we got the business up to over $10 million and the wheels rolling and everything's great. All of a sudden, there's no money. Where's the money? Sales are there. And, again, we had to bring in someone from the outside. And they were saying, you're not realizing, you have a lot more inventory than you think you have. Your margins aren't where you think they are. Your costs are higher, and it seems like such a simple thing. Like, how don't you know that? Like it's ABCs, but something, when you're in the middle of it and everything's moving, you don't think about it. And when the wheel's turning, it's great. But now all of a sudden the wheel slows down a drop and you see, hey, and I realize, something, if someone cuts their leg and they need 12 stitches, a Band-Aid's not going to help. So that really got me on this journey of saying, hey, you know what? Are sales very important? Yeah, sales drive your business, but there's so many other factors that it's not that we ignore them. They're there, but you just say, okay, the money's coming. You're not thinking about it. And the problem is, by the time you think about it, it's too late. Unfortunately, I would love to tell you that we figured it out. We solved the big picture. We're doing $100 million a year today, and everything was great. That was not the case. We ended up we closed the business. It was too late, and I went partners after that with a large company. I felt I needed to restructure my business. This company, I'm going back to, it's got to be the mid to late 90s. They were doing in those days about $160 million a year in business, a lot of money. And one day I needed to send some money overseas. Nothing. I remember it was $10,000. And the owner of the company said, we'll do it next week. Next week became next week. So I told a friend of mine that was there, I said, these guys are in a lot of trouble. He says, what are you talking about? I says, no cash. He says, what do you mean? We're selling Walmart, we're selling Target, we're selling Kmart at the time. P.S. 6 months later, they went bust. So, what? Because we tend not to think about everything in the same magnitude when things are going well.
You just mentioned something that we have been discussing with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, imports. We have talked to a lot of clients that also have to import a lot of their supply chain, from overseas and so forth. Now, you mentioned that when things are good, and if you throw sales at it, you do not basically see the big picture, as not pun intended,
Yeah.
but really is, well, basically you overlook a lot of the failures on the metrics of the business. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think it's almost that you don't realize that there's potential failures. I don't know if it's even failures, but it's there's potential things that are festering that you're not looking at. Again, just using inventory as an example, and again, it's to my business, but it really works on anything. So sometimes a customer wants 24 pieces of something, but the factory only takes 48. So you buy the 24, you buy the 48, you leave the 24 in your warehouse, and you say, "Oh, I'm going to sell them." But now all of a sudden, this guy comes and this guy comes, and before you know, you have thousands of pieces there because you just thought, okay, you just left it.
That's a fair example that you just mentioned right there, Kemi. Actually, I have a great example of, a company that we work with bringing in products actually to Mexico, and with big retailers, that they were demanding these products. What happened? Demand stopped, basically $1 million of inventory right there stuck in Mexico City, not being sold because this is big retailers basically known in Mexico. But
Mhm.
that's just one example of many that are happening right now. So we talk about companies that, basically they are now paying a lot more attention. This is a statement that we put out actually recently, to a lot of our partners and clients. Capital has stayed really scarce when it comes to the ability to be able to find value in businesses. And we see this because we get a lot of requests for capital, either short-term, long-term, expansion, acquisition, even, PE and basically family offices, trying to expand. Well, what happens? Every time we evaluate, we are not seeing basically the growth, the ability of growth through capital injection. And I'm not saying with everybody. There's businesses that do really well and they have that. But who are those? Those are the ones that understood that supply chains were going to change, that they needed to tighten a lot of those decisions. Is that something, that I think with this company, and I don't know if we're talking about, this was a multi-million-dollar company that you work with that
Yeah.
failed to see that?
Yep. I'll do it. Yeah. It's about 170, $180 million. Yeah. Because you're just so, because, that's why I say, I'm a sports guy. So, in football, really, they'll always tell you to win the game, you have to execute all phases: offense, defense, special teams. And business is the same. We tend to neglect, it's funny. Like I always say, the salesman, I'm going off point for a minute, but the salesman's always the superstar in the company. He's the guy. But you know something? What about the guy that's placing the orders, that's watching the orders, that makes sure it gets produced, that makes sure all those guys are integral parts of the team?
I love that because yes, a lot of times we glorify sales because, yeah, of course, it's the bloodline of the business, but the bloodline also needs, it needs a, pancreas, it needs,
Right.
the organs, to really clean up the blood and to get everything
Yeah.
rolling. It's a good analogy because we don't want to look. I will never. The reason why we're doing, these activities and we're talking to people everywhere and we go and do events, we go to expos and everything is because we understand that we have to go show ourselves and make the connections, to sell. But then the strategic thinking has to come in. Basically, foresee, basically do a SWOT analysis, as we mentioned. We just recently did this with a lot of our clients and partners, which is let's do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the business, the products, and how the company is managing everything? Because a lot of times when we find is when we're doing the analysis of the blood work of the business, we are failing because we are not really tightening supply chains. We are not reevaluating contracts when it comes to, hey, where are we getting things from? How much do we really need? Is this functioning for us, or do we need to introduce another supplier that is giving us maybe a better product? And sometimes, a lot of times, cheaper is not better. I'm saying a lot of times,
100%. Yes. I agree.
I'm a big believer that, hey, if we have a good supplier and they're working with us and they're really making us better, well, we got to continue to work with them. Because in the end, that relationship is what's going to translate into growth. But big picture, So let's think about that. Most business owners, and I guess I want to ask you, Kemi, if somebody's listening to us, who's the person that is listening to us right now? What type of business owner? What size of a company? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it could be anyone. Oh, it could be an import, it could be an export, it could be a retailer. And I think this applies to anyone that's listening. You know, if it's an entrepreneur doing social media, if it's someone that's running a market, if it's someone that's importing, because the concept is the same no matter what. If you're doing social media, same thing. Who's out there? Who's not out there? And it's a funny thing because, again, we were saying it seems so simple. I'm sure people listen and say, of course I look at the big picture. But, you know, when we spoke before, I don't have it with me. I had that little BlackBerry phone. You know, big companies did not look. They didn't think there were threats out there. You know, like I was saying, I don't know how many guys in the audience remember MySpace. Space was Facebook before Facebook, and then Facebook decided to Facebook decided we're gonna put social media on smartphone. MySpace didn't pay attention to it. It's not like they said, hey, maybe we should. No one's doing that. They moved on. They went out. BlackBerry, when iPhone came out, they said, no, that's not for business. People want for business. As a matter of fact, Google offered them their platform, they turned it down because they weren't looking big. But in terms of this, in terms of the regular guy, I just think it's very important at least once a month to step back, take your phone out, bury it somewhere, leave your office, leave you wherever you are, and really, like you said, to go to that SWOT analysis and see where am I at. And by the way, it could be everything's great and it continues to be great. It doesn't always have to be a problem, but where am I at? How are my sales? Can I improve my sales? And how is my supply chain? You know, you brought up a very good point. I agree 1,000%. Cheaper is not better, but it's always, and like you said, it's always important to reevaluate your supply chain, because guess what? If I have a vendor that's supplying me and he's great, but you know what? Let me keep him honest and say, hey, by the way, these guys are 30% cheaper. What could you do for me? But if I'm not constantly reevaluating that, I'm going to turn around. Who knows? There's another guy around the block and he's going to come up and I'm going to be out of business maybe.
I like that. I like what you're saying, Kemi, you know, because is that, and a lot of times when things are going good, you just focus on the next transaction, next sale. You just continue
Money's
to feed
coming.
that. Yeah, but then you don't, okay, and I explained this to a lot of the companies that we work with is, okay, what seasonality do we have? You know, like where are our ups and downs? You know, what's going to happen in summer? What's going to happen and what is going to happen in winter? And we plan for those things, right? Because I mean, things function differently now in January compared to, let's say, in the middle of June, July, you know, like, I mean, for a lot of businesses. Also, what I'm doing a SWOT analysis monthly. Actually, I love that. It is a great idea for a lot of these business owners. And look, I say this, you know, because a lot of people thinking, oh, okay, I make $500,000 in sales. Maybe I'm not big enough. I shouldn't think that way. Oh, on the contrary, actually, now when if you're starting or if your business is not up to the $1 million annual sales, this is the best time for you to establish the behaviors that you want the company to do every month and evaluate the numbers and sit down and say, okay, what is happening with our supply chain? What is happening with our providers? And work with the providers. I mean, and I always say that it's not about changing providers. It's about understanding what's the value of this relationship, because that is really what it comes down to. We want to continue to grow relationships. And some of the biggest, basically, success in companies have been that. Now, you mentioned this because most of the time, a business owner does not think about what is the threat that is coming and how to overcome it, because they're just basically busy running the day-to-day operations. So you believe in big picture and empowerment, I believe, of your employees, staff. How does a company should think when it comes to applying this big picture thinking that you mentioned?
So before I answer, I just want to go back to something you said, because I think it's very important. When you was talking about the small customer, the small companies doing $500,000 and everything, you know, when you're building a house, the foundation is everything. You know, if it's a little off in the beginning, it's going to collapse. And then I think it's a very, I don't want to lose the point, because it's really important. The truth is that's really the time when you really, now you have a system. And I'll tell you, when I closed my business, before we closed, I said, you know, we're going to strip it. I wanted to give it one more shot. I remember the first year we went from $12 million. We lost about, I don't know, $1 million, something like that. The next year we did $1 million. I remember we did $1.1 million. $1.1 million.
Wow.
Wait, we lost $20,000.
Wow.
We redid the foundation. Watched again. We couldn't rebuild it, but the point is, what you're saying, when you're small is really the best time to build that solid foundation. So I just wanted to get back to that point in terms of if you're a larger company and you want to, and again, once a month is optimal. If you can't do once a month, for sure, once a quarter is a must. The key is if you have a team, it's very important that you, obviously, I'm assuming you're hiring people that you know are good and that you trust. So if you really trust those guys, you need to let them tell you where it's at. You need to empower them to do their jobs. You need to give them the freedom to speak. A lot of times the leader, the manager, the owner, whoever it is, unfortunately, or for whatever, look, we all have egos. No one likes to be told they're wrong or you made a mistake or this and that. But the real leader wants to hear what's wrong. What do we need to fix? You know what? It's a cliche. People say it's not a personality contest. And guess what? Everyone's in that room for the same reason. They want to make money. And if you're going to take things as a leader personally, or because if I tell you, our marketing department is not doing well, and I see it's because of this and this and that, now you're going to take it personally. Oh, I'm no good. What are you doing? I'm trying to help you. And often I see leaders, they stifle their managers. They don't let them say what they really want to say because they're afraid they're either going to get dismissed or ignored. And it's a very big mistake. I saw today, by the way, it's funny. 1 out of 5 leaders, I think, or 1 out of 10 actually empower their help. And that's why you have a problem in this country. I think it's 30% of workers are engaged at work. Why do you think that is? Everything stems from the top. Everything.
Wow, that's amazing. I saw that same stat. And look, I think for most workers, that may sound like something, oh, well, everybody that I talk to, they just say, well, it's a job. It pays the bills or something like that. How sad is it? And I say that because I've been in that same situation.
Me too.
I mean, look, it's that we're not trying to say we haven't been there. We've been there.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And actually, it's a very interesting time right now that we're experiencing because actually, I don't know if I mentioned this before, Kemi, but I mean, our goal is to be an incubator and create as many entrepreneurs and business owners as possible. Not everybody has the mindset. That's understandable, but it's all statistics. There's a lot of valuable people that can start a business because they, again, doing a SWOT analysis in them, we can find a lot of value in what they can do, and then they can go and be entrepreneurs. Why are we mentioning that? Because and I share this, basically with everybody, all of my brothers and sisters and friends and actually clients and partners that we work with that have kids that are right now coming out of college. We are establishing 2 strategies. Number 1 is, okay, they go to college and there has to be something that really aligns, that gives them a valuable knowledge or title for being able to develop in a career. But second of that, if they have the ingredients, we're going to establish a business for them. We're going to bring them in as operators with the ability to be able to get them into ownership. Why is that? Because I believe that is the best use of a young man's right now time, being able to establish,
100%.
I mean, because as we're seeing, the labor market is changing drastically, and people have to learn how to pivot fast and get this done. And if you have the ability, I mean, and I know I'm going, in a long, basically point here, Kemi, but here's what it is. If you really want to impact right now the next generation, the world, your family, your legacy, well, you got to think about who's coming right after. Basically, what are you building and how this company that you're building is going to affect the next generation of people, and who can you bring in to bring you new ideas so they understand the market, because maybe we are not seeing the big picture. And again, to tie into the theme. Does that make sense, Kemi? What do you think of that?
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think today you're right. First of all, our generation, maybe my generation, you're probably younger than me, but our generation and the generation
Oh,
before that,
right.
yeah, you're not that old. Our generation was taught, you work hard, you work for the company, you get a pension, blah, blah, blah. That's gone. First of all, guess what? Like you said, it's not for everyone. Being an entrepreneur, it's not for everyone. But for the guy that it is for, you go work for the company, so to speak. First of all, guess what? Unfortunately, I found, there's no loyalty anymore. Guy could be there for 15 years, 20 years. Now this happened, COVID. Blah, blah. Oh, we're out. See you. Bye. What do you mean, bye? Bye. That's it. Unfortunately, today, there's no more loyalty. That's number one. Number two, how much are you growing? You know what I'm saying? How much are you going to make? 100, 200, 300. That's it. But if you have that entrepreneurial mindset and you could handle it, let me tell you, it's very tough. I've worked alone. It's not easy, but eventually it'll happen. You'll get people. You have mentors here like you have a program here. You're helping people. I think it's really, especially today. Look, I don't know what AI is going to be or not going to be, but I just think the whole get a good career and work for a good company, I think it's over. That's even, you got me with college also. To me personally, again, if you're not pursuing a career, doctor, lawyer, engineer, this, that, I wouldn't go to college for 4 years. I'd rather go to a business school and learn skills that are going to apply to my real day-to-day life. 100%, I agree, 100%.
Kemi, and I think it's it's fair to say that we have to pay attention on that is seeing the big picture. And I believe that right now a lot of the new generation from Gen Z, and millennials, and I mean, they're starting to say, okay, what is the future? What is happening to companies? And we have experienced very dramatic examples on how fragile the business world is if you do not have an understanding of what's coming after all of this. We just experienced COVID, of course, in 2020. Then now we're experiencing AI, artificial intelligence. So what is happening to a lot of the people that we talk to? I want to show you an example actually that we're seeing here, and I hope you don't mind me sharing
No,
briefly.
not at all. Love it.
So if if you're listening to us and you're looking at the screen, this is basically some of the news that we are seeing out here now. What is the trend? The trend is Gen Z is becoming the to-build generation. We are seeing less enrollment of young people into colleges and universities. And I believe it's because they're not seeing the value of getting, let's say, a degree in a job that maybe they're not going to find in the future. Is that some of the things that we can basically foresee that is something? Is that a good big picture analogy for you, Kemi?
Yeah. And I think, again, you're right, because the big picture is not only in looking at your business, and it's also right, looking, let's say, a younger generation guy that's looking for a career. The big picture is, I'll tell you the first thing, especially today, everyone's chasing the hot market. There's social media, this, that, I will tell you this, in a big picture thing, the first thing you need to do is do what you like. Do what you like. Some guys are introverted. And they're not going to networking events and do it. They're like, maybe you should be an accountant or whatever it is. I think it's important to do what you like, because if you're chasing where the money's at and you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to succeed. So, big picture also is a lot of self-reflection and being honest with yourself to see, what do I like? I think that's step one in anything. What do I like to do?
Well, very, very interesting, because I don't know if you experienced this, Kemi, and again, at the end of the podcast, we're gonna give you all the links, and we're gonna give you all Kemi's contact information.
That's fine.
If you want to be able to plan ahead and actually get strategic advisory thinking, when it comes to what's happening right now. Now, we see business owners, there's 5 stages of businesses, right? Most of the time, we're talking right now a lot of the entrepreneurs, basically number 1, right? But as you start a business or as you're growing a business, you act as 3 spectrums, kind of like artist, skill producer, sales. You go to number 2, maybe where you start managing, is more of the operator, implementation, leader. And then on the third side, you got to think about as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, as a connector. Now, when we just focus on, let's say, managing, then we're not thinking about sales. When we just focus on sales, we don't think about we need to create, we need to
Big
vision,
picture.
big picture. And I think that's a great way to say, hey, look, no matter what stage of your business, if it's a startup, early stage, mid stage, mature, or if you're selling, acquire or merge, you need to be able to see the big picture. With the end in mind, even if you don't sell, I always say, to my friends and clients and everything, think about your business as if you were going to sell it. How much value is this business going to have when you want to be out of the
That's
business?
great.
And if you don't want to be out of the business, just, hey, plan for legacy, plan for, hey, who are we going to bring in? Because in the end, valuable companies should continue a valuable mission, right?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. 100%.
Well, Kemi, tell us of other examples. So you mentioned blackberries, which I miss my blackberries still.
Me
Yes,
too, by the way. It was great. It was great. Um,
I just used
the
to
other
love that.
other one is Blockbuster. Blockbuster was $1 billion company. A billion. They had retail, they had everything. Netflix decided with the streaming. And again, it's funny. I went to visit someone once years ago, very successful businessman. And he had on his desk a little plaque. It said, "No surprises. No surprises." You know what? Guess what? That's the whole point. Like Blockbuster, they didn't pay attention to Netflix. They didn't even look at it to see it was going to be something. Now, if you did, because I did some research on it, if you did, and you said, you know what, we looked at it, we don't think it's a threat, and now it happens. Okay, you did look at it. You made a mistake. That happens. But the key is no surprises. Why should you get slapped in the face at 3 in the morning? You have to anticipate. And when you're not looking at the big picture of things, you're gonna get. You know who came out with the first digital camera?
Who?
Kodak. You remember Kodak? Isn't it
I
crazy?
remember.
By the way, isn't it crazy that there's no such thing as film? When I first got into the picture frame business, we used to go to shows, trade shows, and one of the big things was a lot of guys used to sell film to make. There's no film anymore. But Kodak came out with the first digital camera, and they said, you know what? We're shelving it because we don't want to ruin our other business.
Wow, that is so. I mean, by the way, mind blowing. We used to say Kodak was like Kleenex. Like
Forget
you go
it.
get
Kodak moment.
it's a Kodak moment. Even I think Pitbull, had it in one of his songs or something like that. Picture it with a Kodak or something like that. But yes, it used to be. So who buys Kodak right now? When do you hear
I don't see that
anything like
business
that?
anymore. It's wild.
It is
And
wild.
again, look, things happen. It's not, but, and again, the thing is, by the way, I think I want to stress something also. It's not always something bad's going to happen. It could be your business is fine. Your supply chain is fine. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong. But if you're not looking at it once a month or once a quarter, you're not even going to know it until it's too late. And now if it is good, you can make it stronger and strengthen it.
Don't you think that Kemi, tying into the big picture here? I mean, and let me unpack this basically a little bit. So we so many businesses, and we look at all operations, profits. I mean, basically, what we're looking at is the continuity of that business. Does it have the ingredients and the elements to continue to be a business in 7 years, in 10 years? Why? Because we're looking at, okay, is this a business that is going to have value because it understands what is happening in this industry, the supply chain? Does it have a valuable, let's say, IP, intellectual property, or a model or a concept, something that is so in tune, tight, engineered really well to continue to grow? I mentioned this because a lot of business owners look, and it's very easy as you as a business owner. We've discussed this with ourselves and with other business owners and partners that we have. You can get a little bit of in your ego and not understand that you need to be not the smartest man in the room when it comes to the business. You need to bring in people that also add value to the conversations, kind of like what we're doing right now,
Yeah.
you and I.
You need to be a facilitator.
Yes. And I believe that's how you grow. Actually, we have experienced it even, and I think, basically I mentioned this besides with Evermar Capital, I'm the vice chair of one of the biggest Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Spanish here in Houston. The more we brought experts in fields that we had to create committees to be able, hey, we need an expert in AI. And how is this really translated into this world? We need, influencer committee. We need to bring in people, and then they bring us the ideas to be able to execute and connect the dots. It's not about us coming up with, the concepts or
Right, of
everything.
course,
Those
right.
then an incubator of ideas. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I want to ask you a question. In all the businesses that you analyze, have you seen businesses and you said to yourself, wow, this guy is sitting on a gold mine and they don't realize it? Because you see that
All
a
the
lot?
time.
Yeah.
Yes, all the time.
Do you think it ties into that big picture that they weren't?
No, I think that they're failing to see big picture. I mean, in our conversations, we focus a lot on macro, so we can
Mhm.
understand how everything it's flowing to, basically vertical, horizontal integration of and how everything is affecting. When I mentioned to you, I mean, and I have these conversations with some of the business owners, and I tell them, okay, look, and this is about doing the SWOT analysis of the business, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. And most of the time, people are being so reactive. They are not really thinking. They're not having big picture thinking because they're just reacting. I gotta go do this.
Yeah.
I gotta go do that. And then
Leadership mind.
it's because a lot of times they're not really delegating, creating a team around them that helps them to support the mission of the business. I believe that. Look, you can, if you want to live in an island, burn the boats and don't work with anybody. But that's not who we are. We
No,
are not, as humans, that's not who we are. Think about
no.
how a human thrives. A human doesn't thrive alone. A human thrives with a group of people around. When you put one man in an island, he survives. When you put 10 men in an island, they thrive and they
Yeah.
build systems and processes and things. And
I think we're losing that a little bit now with the social, with the phones and stuff. But okay, yeah, well, I think we're losing that human interaction a little bit more. But okay, that's another subject for another day. You brought up another good point. It's especially when you're building up your company, and now you get up to that level where you have a team and you need a team. You get stuck because when you were small, you were doing everything yourself. You're going here, you go, blah, blah, blah. Now that you got bigger, it's very hard to break out of keep doing those little things. So what do? You tell the guy, you did this, you did this, you did this. And again, and now you need to be above everything when you're looking at that big picture. And, there was a book once, I think it was called The 5 Minute Manager. It was a guy sitting in his office and he's not doing anything. So someone said, what do you do? I have my team. I don't need to, you know what? I need to facilitate. I need to listen. I need to ask questions. I need to say, hey, like you said, how are we doing creative? How are we doing in social media? How are we doing here? What ideas do you have? But I think it's very important also, you got to take the ego out. You got to take the ego out. A lot of times it's not, I'm trying to, you know what? No, look, no one likes to hear things that, you know what? Oh, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. But it's not you, it's a company, and we're trying to grow it. And the key is, again, like we said before, you need, especially when you hit that higher level in business, that higher level in management, you really need to step away, because if you don't, you're really limited in your growth. You can't do everything, it's impossible. And then you can't think clearly. And you can't make sure everything's, because you're sitting putting out fires all the time.
Kemi, to tie into that example, that is a great example that we're discussing with clients when it comes to the next stages of growth, right? As I mentioned, if you are in growth mode, if you already figure out your business, you have a model, and then this happens basically to the operators that have, let's say one, let's talk about retail, or 1 to 3 locations, you're managing it and you run it like clockwork. And then they tell me, Andres, I want to grow. Andres, I want to expand my business. I'm like, okay, so let's look at it. Operationally, in order for you to grow, you cannot keep doing the same things that you're doing right now. I will need you to become a different, basically, we need to find the replacement of you in certain areas so they can manage that, like a operations manager that can be basically multiplying all of your processes and procedures and all of that. And we have software. We need, well, okay, by the way, what is the system that we're going to multiply? Are you willing to now become the champion of the brand if we're going to get you, let's say, into franchising? One of the best ways for you to expand, I believe this, is if you have a good business model, a good supply chain, a good, let's say, a valuable concept and product, the best way that you can actually expand is given the system to other people that are needing that idea, that are needing, they believe in the product, they believe in the concept, they believe in the supply chain. Let them be owners of that business and multiply it in different areas. To me, it's one of the most beautiful stories of the United States. Honestly, I'm a
Yeah.
big believer in that. And actually, most people don't understand franchising when it comes to what it does to different industries. All right, because we hear the McDonald's example,
I,
we hear those big ones, right? But
so even
it's
the small ones, it could work. Yeah. I never thought of it.
no,
You're right.
even the small ones. I mean, we look at franchises that are small that do really well. And we've seen a lot of private equity firms, like actually even right now, paying attention to these franchises because they say, hey, look, they have something valuable here. Okay, well, maybe they're disrupting a certain type of industry. I mean, we see it even in the blue collar right now. It's being basically injected by a lot of private equity. So besides that, we have people that need those jobs, that need to be able to, take on those models. So the person that has the model, that needs to become a franchisor, needs to function completely different than before.
Yeah.
Now it's, hey, have your town halls. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at, hey, what locations need support? Do we have the people that can support? Basically, you now have you orchestrate and you delegate and you move forward.
It's
You
hard.
It is hard because most people want to have that control. And
Yeah.
look, I don't believe in that. I believe that we need to support other people by giving them the ability. It's you
You're
giving
right.
multiplying that great idea and letting somebody else also feed their families and continue to move forward. Does that make
100%.
sense?
Yes. Yeah. It's a beautiful idea. And it's true.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, me. Right. So besides all of these problems that we see basically with the business owners, what other problems do you feel when it comes to leadership, when it comes to this business owners? How are you helping them understand the challenges? How do you walk them through that process?
So I'll tell you, I always say an owner, a businessman, you didn't get to where you were because you're stupid. I always feel that the people I work with, they have all the answers. They do because they got to where they are. It's just sometimes, there's just so much in the head. You just need someone to release that steam, to clear your head up again, to gain that clarity. A lot of times it's really just asking. Usually there's a challenge. Obviously, there's a challenge on the table, let's say. But now, once the challenge is addressed, let's say it's how do I develop more sales? I don't, it's funny. I've worked with consultants in the past. And I'm not trying to kill consultants. But I'm not so big on consultants.
Don't
I'm
worry. If
just
you want to talk bad, trash them. Don't worry,
I'm
Kemi.
a trash them. I just feel that they come in with these big lunches and these PowerPoints and these graphs, and they say this is what you need to do to make your business successful. And that's what, by the way, I never tell them I'm not you, and you're not. You're going to tell me what I need to do. How did I get here? Do I have a challenge? Yeah, yes, I have a challenge. I do have a challenge, and I need help to get through that challenge. You're going to tell me how to do it. So a lot of times, once the challenge is addressed, I usually just ask questions. That's it. Ask questions. What are some of your ideas? What's his? Look, I may say in my head, he has to do this, this, and this. And also, look, in general, if it's not coming from you, as it is, guess what? The guy that knows he has to grow, like, let's say the franchise guy. Let's say the guy that has to expand his business and he wants to go and franchise out his stores and stuff. He knows he has to do it, and he knows he's going to make money, and it's so hard to change it. So now it's the same thing. If I'm going to tell you what to, you're going to go do it. It has to come from you, the idea. So it's just really helping that guy get some clarity through the question. Now he's going to say, oh, you know what? I didn't think of that. It's going to come out. The answer's up here. It's just getting someone to help you get it out. That's all. That's
Great point, Kemi. Actually, last week I was with actually one of my clients that he has a cabinet manufacturing business. I mean, just basically mentioned briefly. We were going through the exercise of the problem that he's having right now with cash flow and so forth. And what just basically with this lunch, like which we were enjoying and everything, we were able to create a plan to be able to multiply the sales. But it's because he had it all in his head,
Right.
but
See,
I
it's
had
right.
to have them tell me what's going on with this, tell me what's going on with that. And then in this discussion, we said, hey, comes up. And I said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we try this at least, for this quarter or for this month? And let's see if, what results do we get immediately. And this was basically, hey, what do we have and what is it not going to cost us a lot to be able to continue to grow? Now, guess what? He was so, we were so excited. I'm most of the times
Right.
when I'm in meetings, I'm just drawing and making charts, and he just took a picture. I'm like, all right, let me take a picture. Let me get to work. He was excited. And look, I'm saying is, hey, I think the value of a person is also what people pour in them and who are you
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with.
Oh, yeah,
To
that's a
me,
whole, yeah.
partnerships is one of the most important things in my life. And I have partnerships that are my business and personal very combined because I love these people and they love me. And we protect ourselves and we strategize for what's coming. That's really where I believe we thrive as business owners, as entrepreneurs. So if you're not in those rooms, start looking around and finding good
Yep.
people around you so you
And
can.
yes,
Yes. Kemi, I love that. Hey, Kemi, look, I don't know how much time do you have, but
um,
I'll take all the time you have. I think that you have so many things, and I don't think we have even scraped the surface of all the knowledge that you have. And I'll
thank
be
you.
honest. No, no, really, I love that. I think this is a great conversation. But and I say this basically, if this doesn't stay in the podcast, but do you want to
Yeah.
continue or do you want to maybe do another one later? How would you
Yeah,
want
I'd
to?
love to do another one. Yeah,
Yeah, because otherwise we're gonna take 3 hours here. I could
for
tell.
sure. By the way, me too.
I love your thinking. I love how you talk. I will
Thank
definitely
you.
continue. Okay. So, but of course, we're gonna drive people into, where can they find you?
It's
What?
fine. Yeah, okay.
No, no. If you want, Kemi, of course, I want to be able to showcase you as well.
Hmm.
So, let me do that, Kemi. So there's so much fabric, so much cloth that we can cut, really,
Yeah.
you know, through this. And I think that we're only scraping the surface, but I want to, be able to guide our listeners to where can they find you, how can they follow you, and where can they get more of these ideas that you have about how do I strategically think big picture.
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Kemi, Key, and my last name is Safdie, SA like Apple, F Frank, D David, IE, Kemmy Safdie. I'm on LinkedIn, or you can email me at kemi@thesafdiegroup.com. And I'm always available. I offer a free session for 45 minutes if anyone wants to just talk and shoot the breeze, so to speak. And I'm available. You can email me. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm there.
Fantastic, Kemi. Well, I definitely, encourage people to go see you, go talk to
Thank
you.
you.
And it is in a brief conversation, understanding the problems on, of course, people like you that can bring a lot of value to business owners, work with people that really, have knowledge, have the experience, have done it before. They understand those challenges.
Yeah, I think
So
you have to understand it.
you
That's
have,
another thing I'll tell you. But before I think, a lot of times today, people becoming business coaches. You have people becoming life coaches. You have, and again, part of the process is really just listening well and asking questions. But I think you need to have lived it. You can't just decide, even life, by the way, let's say a guy, I don't know, you're not married for 20 years with kids and this, now you're going to be a life coach. I think you need experience because I think it just helps you understand better and gives you more clarity when you're asking that question. I don't know how we got to that, but anyway.
it's all this ping pong that we're playing, Kemi. But trust me, there's a reason for it. Yeah, because I think that of course, you have to be knowledgeable. You have to have the experience to be able to have empathy. Because they've gone through the same situation that you're going
Yeah.
through right now. That's what I believe in too. Look at and I think we fail sometimes to really have empathy for others and their
Yeah.
challenges, because maybe with, we're in another stage, but guess what? If we don't do that, like right now, I think that one of the biggest problems we have I'll be honest, Kemi, is
Hmm.
having empathy right now for a young entrepreneur or a young man.
Yeah.
I say this because every time I meet a young man, I'm trying to understand their values. I'm trying to understand what they want to get to. And I want to be able to help them add value, maybe put them in situations where they can
So the
succeed.
beautiful thing you're doing. It really is.
Well, I
It's
mean,
so important.
we can all do it. We can all do it.
Yes.
Every time we go into any room, we need to embrace the young people, either
Yeah.
entrepreneurs or operators or people that just want to work and help. There's a lot of valuable young men right now and women that are looking to really come into a room and help. And
Yeah.
we should allow them to.
Um, Totally off topic because I know we're closing up soon and hopefully we are going to speak again, but I just wanted to go back to big picture and stuff. It just popped into my head. I don't want to forget it. A
Yeah.
very important thing when you're looking at a big picture, whatever the issue is, whatever this challenge is. That's also an interesting thing. I went to a time management seminar maybe 20 years ago. I never forgot it. The guy said, anytime you're going through something, don't say you have a problem because a problem weighs you down. Say you have a challenge because a challenge picks you up. You'll fight a challenge, you'll collapse by a problem. So I just remembered that. But now when you're going, and again, business can be perfect. The main thing is when you're looking at a big picture, take your emotion out. We deal sometimes too much our emotion. Take your emotion out. You got to look at it as if it's nothing to do with you. You're out of the picture, and you just look at it in a cold analytical way. Take your emotions out of your thinking.
Kemi, don't you think that ties in that particular example ties in into having a group of brainstorming, support,
Yes. Yeah.
brotherhoods, ideas, sisterhoods,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
You know why? I mean, this is why I believe in getting together with people. Because even though you have the knowledge, your emotions are, basically keeping you unaware of your blind side.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when you bring in other people that care about you, but hey, they don't have an emotional attachment to your
Yeah.
situation.
Yes.
Hey, but look, this is what this will be my thinking if you do this and that. But at least you listen. Somebody of value, right? Because I don't
Yeah.
believe everybody really brings in value. Some people,
No.
they don't, and honestly, that's why we start basically, weeding out, the people that don't stay in our circle. But
Yes.
whoever brings in value, they're doing it with an non-emotional attachment, and they can give us a perspective that is a lot more maybe basically it's a
Object
lot.
here. The cabinet guy. He's too emotionally attached. No cash flow. He's under pressure. He's nervous, and it's a problem. Now here you're coming from the outside. You don't have his pressure, and now all of a sudden, boom! Here.
Actually, I'll give you another example. I'm sorry, Kevin, because I'm going to continue
No, it's
to
good.
bring you some
Yeah,
examples. You know, have you heard
I
of the?
started this.
You started it, and I'm keeping it. All right, but here's the thing. You know these the Wawa. You know the
Yeah, sure.
Wawas.
Yeah,
So they're a to me they were so interesting as a successful business that has lately basically popped up, and I will tell you why. Because actually one of the trends that we've seen is gas stations, right? Gas stations, I don't know if you noticed, but in the market, if you go right now, you're going to see a lot of gas stations being sold. And I believe it's because we've had a lot of people buying gas stations before, not operating them properly, draining down the value, maybe not maintaining them, and then getting into phase two, phase three problems. Maybe tanks that are leaking, things like that. I mean, just basically, it's a problem underground. That's really
yeah,
where the way I see it. When we're looking at the capitalization of these things, like we have to basically understand what the risk is. And Wawa was a great example of how these gas stations, they became now basically pillars to the community. People love
yeah,
these things now.
yeah. They're great.
But it's
Yes.
because I believe what they did is they did a SWOT analysis and they said, okay, who are we? What do we have? What do we have? We have a gas station. We have a counter. We have a space. Okay. how can we better the experience? Because money is chasing value. This happens when you are now, every time you're spending something right now, if you're looking to spend any money right now, you're looking at how valuable is this? It's not how
Right.
cheap, it's how valuable. And they basically came in and they did this reanalysis of the business. They said, okay, we're going to make it an experience for people to come in into these gas stations, these
Yeah.
Wawas. And
Agree.
now
Yeah.
people love going there. They get a great product when it comes to, sandwiches and
Yeah.
coffees and things
Yes.
like that. So now they're a pillar in the community. That's why I believe that retail, all of these places, we need them to continue to bring in value because they're places of gathering. They're places that you
Yes.
remember and your kids are going to remember going and
100%.
saying, let's do that. So that's why I believe that these businesses need help as well.
Agreed.
All right, Kemi. Well, let's wrap it up because I think you and I,
Yes.
we're going to stay here all day. And I know you got
100%.
places to see and things to
My
do.
wife got errands to do,
Kemi,
or else I would be all day.
no, I really appreciate this. This has
It's
been
great.
amazing. And thank you so much. And like I
Thank you.
said, we're going to put all the links, down below, so people can find you and contact you. And I hope that we can do this again and,
Yeah, I'd
maybe
love
bring
to.
in a lot more value. Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, for those that are listening to us, thank you so much for coming along. And we're going to see you in the next podcast.
1,